Star Wars 7x7 episode 2060. It seems like Friday is the day for reporting new rumors about Star Wars projects, because it happened again, and I'm going to break down all the details for you here. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. So here we go. The Hollywood Reporter on Friday afternoon, in their headline, said that Star Wars is considering a new movie project, that it is in the early stages of development and conversations and talks and whatnot. So, here's the thing. The headline says movie, but when you actually read the article, it just says a project. It doesn't actually say a movie. And one of the things the article says is that the sources they're hearing this from don't know whether this is going to be for theatrical release or for Disney+. Well, here's the thing. I have been looking over the past 30 hours since the story broke, and I can't put my finger on this, but I know I've seen this. I know we've talked about it on the show, so here you go. When Bob Iger had some quarterly earnings call, Bob Iger being the chief muckety-muck at Disney, or some Investor Day presentation, in talking about Disney Plus and Star Wars, one of the things he said was that they would not do original Star Wars movies for Disney Plus. That the only things they would be doing would be series, would be live action animation. Okay, so no movies. If it's going to be a Star Wars movie, it's going to be in theaters. So there you go. We can resolve that quandary, at least based on what Bob Iger has told us so far, is that if this is a movie project, it is going to be intended for theatrical release. And it was the Hollywood Reporter that broke this story, but Variety and Deadline Hollywood have also confirmed with their sources that what Hollywood Reporter is hearing is the same thing that they're hearing. It doesn't necessarily mean that the story is confirmed officially. They're just saying, yeah, we heard the same thing the Hollywood Reporter heard. And so that's as far as we can take it. But they're also reporting the fact that the Star Wars movies on the Disney movie release calendar are still there, so there hasn't been any change between the original announcement and now, with all the things that have gone on since. We're still talking about December of 2022, 2024, and 2026 as being Star Wars movie dates, but as to what they are, that's still a mystery. And as these stories do, they also trotted out the other potential projects in development, including Kevin Feige working on a Star Wars movie, Taika Waititi being rumored to be attached to a Star Wars movie, Rian Johnson and his trilogy, and Variety even brought up Leda Kalogridis, who was a while ago rumored to be working on something that involved the Knights of the Old Republic. So I haven't seen anything about that since that was announced months ago. And so now suddenly that was brought back up on the radar. But back to this new project, the article says that plot details, character details, setting details are unknown and buried in the murky depths of the underworld of Exegol. That's how the article puts it. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but you get the idea. The idea is that, it's meant to be interpreted as, stylish writing and tongue-in-cheek and, taking Star Wars properties and making it sound like, oh yeah, we get it, right? We know how to talk about Star Wars. That sounds fun. Not that they actually meant to say that they don't know plot, character, setting, but it's going to happen on Exegol for sure. No, that's not what the writing of it actually suggested to me. But Deadline Hollywood actually ran with that and said that it's being reported that it's going to take place on Exegol. So, not quite sure. My read of it is that it's just unknown at this point. And as for the people who are attached to this Star Wars project that's being rumored, well, one of them is a writer named Matt Owens, who wrote for the Luke Cage series on Netflix and also for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But the biggest news would be the director J.D. Dillard, who is also attached to these rumors, and he's a writer as well. If this is actually true, and it is actually a movie, and J.D. Dillard is going to be tapped as the director for whatever this feature is, then he would be the first person of color to direct a Star Wars movie, which would be a very exciting development. Now, if you're not familiar with J.D. Dillard or his work, well, you could certainly be forgiven for that. He has been, up till now, an independent filmmaker. His stuff has debuted at Sundance. Slight and Sweetheart are two of his movies, and he was recently tapped to do a reboot of the horror franchise The Fly, so we'll see how that goes. But there is a more direct connection to Star Wars that J.D. Dillard has, and I will explain what that is after the break. Stay tuned. Hey Rebel Rouser, I've made some changes to the asteroid belt level at patreon.com/SW7X7, and they are all with sponsors in mind. So if you want to get the word out about your business, your product, your service to a dedicated Star Wars audience, then please check out patreon.com/SW7X7 and look for the asteroid belt level for details. Again, that's patreon.com/SW7X7. Welcome back. So at the very end of the Hollywood Reporter article, there's a line that says that J.D. Dillard worked in a production capacity and also played a stormtrooper in The Force Awakens. All right, so there's the direct Star Wars link, if you will. But it actually goes a bit deeper than that. So there's nothing in the Hollywood Reporter article from a backstory perspective other than that, but there is actually a Fast Company article from April of 2019, a longer profile on J.D. Dillard, and his story, I'm going to summarize a couple of points for you. First of all, he was in film school at USC in 2008, but had to drop out after a semester because, as he said, it was just too expensive. And heaven knows I can attest to that. I was accepted to USC back in the day, but I couldn't go because it was too expensive, and that was in the 90s, and it's only gotten more expensive since then, but be that as it may. He ultimately decided to take a job as a receptionist at Bad Robot. Yes, indeed, the production company that J.J. Abrams owns with his wife, Katie McGrath. And Katie McGrath was actually the person who invited him to come along to all the overseas locations to be a part of the production of The Force Awakens, and that became his film school for all intents and purposes. But it wasn't like he just went from receptionist to suddenly working in production on The Force Awakens. No, he was writing and sending out scripts and trying to get his own deals, and the article talks about how he was having to take meetings out of the office while he was working at Bad Robot and being afraid that they were going to fire him because of him being out sick too much or something like that. And so he talked to their HR person and said, hey, I'm sorry, this is what's been going on. And he says that he was shocked to discover that they were excited about that. He didn't expect to be congratulated on the fact that he was getting meetings for the work that he was putting out there. And later, J.J. Abrams got wind of what was happening and said, this guy works for us and he's taking meetings because of his stuff. We should be seeing his stuff. Let's look at it. And it turned out that it wasn't anything that Bad Robot actually bid on, but that they put a good word out for him with other production companies and other outfits that might have been screening his stuff, which, as Dillard notes, it's not bad to have a recommendation for Bad Robot in your pocket. So that is more stuff that kind of fills in the story of how he went from receptionist to working on The Force Awakens to now being discussed in connection with a new Star Wars movie project. But for now, until we get more word about this project, more details, or anything about how it's developing, pun intended, that's going to do it for us talking about that, and that's going to do it for this episode of the show as well. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you, wherever in the galaxy you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.